All right, Buckeye fans, we'd much rather be on our way to Indianapolis today, but obviously not the case. But a ton of football going around the United States of America today, and all of it is going to have a huge impact on what the college football playoff will look like at large, and specifically what it'll look like for our Ohio State Buckeyes. We dive into it all on this episode of the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast. Anthony Moeglin here with you, standing outside of Ohio Stadium. And, man, what a difference a week makes. Just about 1 week ago to the hour, to the minute, I should say, this place was packed to the brim with 110,000 of you crazy Buckeye fans, with the greatest anticipation of taking on the Michigan Wolverines and really securing our spot in the B10 Championship game, which obviously did not come to fruition. So where are we at? We're obviously not on our way to Indianapolis for a game against the Oregon Ducks tonight, but there's so many games going around the country today that are going to have a huge impact on Ohio State and the college football playoff at large, because while I think 10 out of the 12 playoff teams are pretty much set in stone, there are going to be some games today that could shake some things up, and we're going to dive into it all this morning here. So we're about 10 minutes away from kickoff of the first game, and obviously it's the first one on our board here between the Iowa State Cyclones and the upstart Arizona State. I forget their nickname, Sun Devils. There we go. It came to me quickly, but the Arizona State Sun Devils, man, they are the story of college football. Kyle Dillingham down there in Tempe's got that program rolling, and they're so fun, and they are the perfect example of what college football is in these days. They were picked to finish 16th in the Big 12. That's almost dead last in the Big 12. And here they are on Championship Sunday with a chance to punch their ticket against the Iowa State Cyclones, who haven't won a conference championship since 1912. That's over 115 years, or just about 115 years from today. So a huge matchup that's taking place down in Arlington, Texas, down at Jerry's World, and one that is a win and get in situation. Arizona State comes into the game ranked, I believe, 15th in the country, while Iowa State is 18th, I do believe, and those numbers could be off on my side. And the early line on the game, it's number 15 Arizona State versus number 16 Iowa State. That early line on that game, and it just moved within the last 5 minutes. Iowa State favored by 1.5. So apologies there for having the wrong number on that side of things. And truth be told, with each team being 10-2, as you can hear some cheering behind me, there's a lot of action actually here outside the stadium, as it feels like all the Penn State fans that are traveling to Indianapolis are coming through Columbus. Obviously, that would be the route. They're making their stop here at Ohio Stadium to take some pictures, some funny, some probably for memory. But in this game kicking off here at noon, it's going to be a really fun one. Both teams 10-2, both teams fighting for their chance to get into the playoff. And really, the winner of this game will have, depending on what happens in the nightcap, we'll probably have that fifth. They probably will have either that fourth seed, that last highest conference championship winner, or they'll be that fifth seed and be slotted at the number 12 spot. And kind of throughout the entire season, we've been anticipating that 12 seed be one of the group of 5 teams. You think about a Tulane, think about an Army, a Navy, somebody like that. But as things really shook out, I think it's going to be one of the big four, one of the power four, I guess now, players. And one of them could be coming from this game here kicking off at noon. So exciting and fun matchup between two teams that are hungry to get into the playoff. Their tickets are not punched. So Conference Championship Saturday is going to get off to an incredibly hot start and do so in a really, really fun matchup. All right. after that Iowa State and Arizona State goes final starting at noon, we go to the big one. We go down to Atlanta, Georgia for the SEC championship game between the Texas Longhorns and the Georgia Bulldogs, a rematch of a game that Georgia kind of dominated that first time. They went down to Austin to take on the Longhorns, and if you remember back to that game, they kind of had Texas just totally flustered. It was Texas' biggest game to that point, and Georgia came in and kind of thumped them. They had Quinn Ewers, really his brain was in a pretzel that entire game, really confused with what he was seeing, and was not playing well. So much so that Coach Sarkisian decided to bench him in favor of Archie Manning. Came in and got a couple snaps and didn't look any better when Arch was in. I know everyone was excited when that happened, but it was a little bit of a struggle. However, as this game looks at or sits right now, Texas is a 3-point favorite. And that's really an interesting number to me because this is pretty much a home game for the Georgia Bulldogs. It's in Atlanta, a little bit of a travel for the Texas Longhorn faithful. But Texas is playing some really, really good football. And if we saw anything from last week against Georgia Tech, Georgia really struggled with the running quarterback. And now, what does that mean for Texas? Well, Quinn Ewers, coming off an injury, has an ankle injury that he's going to be playing with. But like I said, they played with a little bit of Arch Manning last time that they played. And now that Arch is fully through an entire season, are they going to go back to him? Because Arch does present a little bit of a threat in the run game. So it's an interesting wrinkle there, but still going to be an awesome matchup. And for this one, I think both these teams are squarely in the playoff. Texas for sure. This is the number 2 Texas Longhorns versus the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs. And I think that Texas for sure is squarely in the playoff. If they get a win, depending on what happens in Indianapolis, they're going to be the 1 or the 2 seed, and they're going to be feeling really, really good about their chances. And they're playing really good football as of late and stringing it in to the college football playoffs, which they're certainly excited about. Now, for Georgia is where it gets kind of interesting. If they win, right, they're going to jump in and be one of the top 3 seeds. Where they'll land, we'll kind of all shake out. But if they lose, now they become a team that none of the others want to face. You get Georgia, you draw Georgia in a first round matchup. That's not necessarily one that you want. And where they fall will be really interesting. It probably would be somewhere in the 6, 7, or 8 range, which means somebody's going to have to come down to the head in between the hedges to get a win in the first round of the playoffs. Something that I know for a fact that Indiana, Ohio State, Notre Dame, all of those schools, Tennessee even, they don't want to hear. They certainly don't want to hear that, because I'd much rather, I think, in my opinion, travel down to Austin, Texas or somewhere else rather than going down to Athens, Georgia to take on the Bulldogs. But another exciting football game. It's one that Georgia's coming off that absolute barn burner that, in my opinion, we never talked about this, but I think they got a gift last week when they were taking on the Yellow Jackets for Georgia Tech. But they did get a win, 44-42 in 8 overtimes. And, they got to be feeling good. Texas, on the other hand, has been taking care of business. They've been doing so in convincing fashion. Their schedule hasn't been the toughest, but they've been doing what they have to do. And this one is going to really set the stage here at 4:00 of what this final college football playoff ranking is going to look like. And then after that, we get double. You're going to have to go double screen. If you got YouTube TV, you're loving this, because you're getting the ACC championship and the Big 10 championship kicking off at the exact same time, 8 p.m. And this one here, going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, just about a 2-hour drive for the Clemson Tiger faithful. And now this one is a really interesting game. This game here has a lot of implications on what this final bracket is going to look like. And first, we'll start with SMU. SMU is going to be 2.5-point favorites. Again, this is going to feel like a road game for the Mustangs as they get into Charlotte. And if they are able, and I'm not calling an upset because I don't think Clemson's been playing good football, but if they're able to get a win today, they will be certainly squarely within the top 4. Now, if they are unable to get a win today, where does that leave them? This is where the conversation gets really interesting, because they will be a 2-loss team. They'll be 11-2 if they don't get it done. And now that brings South Carolina into the question, and that brings Alabama into the question. And if you look at all of the entire resume, I'm afraid from, I think all of college football all of college football fandom, I'm afraid that the edge will fall to the Alabama Crimson Tide, because Alabama's schedule much harder than what SMU had to go through, and they only have one extra loss. But on the flip side of things, does the committee penalize SMU for having to play in a conference championship game? I suppose time will tell. But that conversation doesn't happen if SMU does get the job done. Now, on the flip side of things, here's where stuff starts to really get shook up, is if Clemson is able to take down the Mustangs. So Clemson, coming off an incredibly disappointing loss last week. They're the number 17th ranked team in the country. They're 9-3 on the season. So if they do get a win, they're going to get an automatic bid into the college football playoff. Now, they will probably not be in the top 4, because I do believe that they will certainly not jump Boise State. So Boise State, after their win last night over UNLV, has secured, I believe, a spot in the college football playoff. And I do not believe that that Clemson, with the win tonight, will jump them. So where does that land Clemson? That would put them as the 12 seed. So interesting. A seed that we thought was going to be one of a group of 5 schools, maybe somebody, like I said, like a Tulane, or maybe somebody like an Army or a Navy, or even a Boise State, somebody like that. BYU was in that conversation. But if Clemson does get a win, they will probably fall at that 12 seed. So that really shakes things up above them in kind of moving some teams up and kicking out some other teams. And that conversation will go to SMU. Will they land inside the college football playoff, or will they land just outside the college football playoff? A ton of implications coming your way at 8 p.m. Down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And now the last one we want to get to, and appreciate everybody jumping in with me this morning as we are approaching kickoff of of that first game. So if you agree with me, jump in the comment section, let me know, and we'll be able to chat about it here. But won't keep you much longer, as you guys are going to flip over and watch the start of this first game. But the nightcapper, Penn State versus Oregon, the one that all Buckeye fans are going to have their eyes on here, is is Oregon is 3.5-point favorites in Indianapolis against the Penn State Nittany Lions. And for this one, for me, again, this has a similar feel to the SEC championship game, where both teams, I think, are squarely in the playoff. I think both teams are going to be in regardless of what happens, because both teams have pretty solid resumes. Penn State, the number 3 team in the country. Oregon, the number 1 team in the country. Oregon, that perfect 12-0, and Penn State 11-1, with their one loss being at the hands of our Buckeyes here. So what's going to happen in this one? I don't understand this line, first of all. 3.5 doesn't seem like enough points for me, because frankly, I do not think Penn State's a very good football team. I didn't think they were a very good football team back when Ohio State snuck out a win in Happy Valley. I wasn't on the show that week. I was out traveling, but I was not. That was when the red flags started popping up for me for this Ohio State Buckeye team, because I don't think Penn State's very good. I think Drew Aller, unfortunately, I'm a Cleveland guy. I think Drew Aller's been a massive disappointment, in my opinion. I was expecting so much more from him, and I don't think he's really produced that. And partly because I think Penn State's skill position groups are not very good. I think that they're going to certainly struggle, and Oregon's going to have the upper hand definitely against the Penn State skill group. But the one difference maker is Tyler Warren. We talked about him when Ohio State was prepping to play Penn State. This guy's a certified stud. You go back to the USC game, where I think he had like 17 catches for like 240 yards and a couple scores. They put him in the Wildcat. They snap it right to him. They hand the ball off to him. He does everything for him, and it's really unique because he does it from the tight end position. So if there's one guy that can keep Penn State in on the offensive side, it's going to be Tyler Warren. On the other side, it's Abdul Carter. He's going to be looking to be a top 5 pick in the upcoming NFL draft, a guy that is certainly a game changer. And if he gets his hands on Dylan Gabriel in the backfield, that's certainly something that could flip the game. But I think Oregon's firepower is just going to be too much. Dan Lanning has this team playing well. He has them believing, and he has their eyes set on the mountaintop, man. And everybody in their way feels like it's just a roadblock. So I think that this line is way too small. I think, in my opinion, Oregon goes into Indianapolis, travels cross country, and gets the better of Penn State. So before we jump into to what this all means for the Buckeyes, I haven't been given my predictions. I'll rip through them here. Real quickly, Iowa State, Arizona State. I think ASU gets a really tight victory, potentially on a last-second field goal, something along those lines. I think that game's going to be low scoring, but I do think Arizona State gets a win there. I think Texas gets a victory over the Georgia Dogs. Now, I think this game's really, really close, but that 3-point spread, I think, is right on line of about what it's going to be. I got Texas winning somewhere in the ballpark of 24-21, 27-24, something along those lines. I think that one's pretty close. I think that's a very fun football game, but I think Texas is going to learn a lot from what Georgia did to them last time. They're going to prove to be a much tougher team, and I think that it'll prove out, and Texas will get a victory. Clemson versus SMU. While I think it is total chaos if Clemson gets the win, I got the Mustangs. I got the Mustangs kind of with a little bit of a spread there. I got the Mustangs by 10 points, 27-17, somewhere in that range. Not a total blowout, but maybe a late score at the end to push it to a 2-score victory. And then in the nightcap, I think Oregon thumps Penn State. I think it is a 2-score, 14, 17-point win, something along those lines where the Oregon Ducks really take care of business and put the entire country on notice, because since they beat Ohio State, Oregon's been kind of on the back burner. Nobody's been really talking about them because they've been just doing their job. They've been just kind of dominating teams and doing so in convincing fashion. So they never come up in conversation, but I think that they are pretty spectacular. So what does this all mean for Ohio State? And that's certainly the question that everybody cares about here, is what does this all mean for the Buckeyes? And to talk about that portion of it, as we do have kickoff down in Dallas, I bring up the projected college football playoff ranking as of last week's rankings, and this is obviously brought to you here by ESPN. So you look across the board. This kind of matches with what my predictions are for the game. I got Oregon being the 1 seed, SMU being the 3, Texas being the 2, and then Boise State obviously has their ticket punched, and I believe that they are the 4 seed. Now, where does things start to shake up? This one has Arizona State being the 12th seed, and that's exactly kind of where things fall for me. Now, where I think things shake up a little bit is where Penn State is the 5 seed currently in this projection. I think if Oregon kind of dominates them, they won't drop to the 5 seed. I think they'll drop a little bit lower than that. I think Notre Dame jumps up to that 5 seed, the coveted 5 seed, because that route is certainly a little bit easier than any of the others, taking on Arizona State. Nothing against Arizona State and Boise. I just think that comparatively to Alabama and Georgia and Indiana, playing those two teams is where you kind of want to be if you don't have that first round bye. And then the one that would be an amazing football game, the 8-9 Ohio State versus Tennessee. That would be awesome. Two of the biggest brands in the history of college football, and then matching up in this stadium behind me. I grew up kind of a Tennessee fan. Long story on that one, but I think for me it would be so much fun, and for all of college football, it'd be a total blast. But I don't think that that's going to shake out that way. I think Ohio State's going to jump up a little bit, maybe to that 7 spot, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there, depending on some of these finals. But really, the teams that are going to be kind of a toss-up are Georgia, Tennessee, and Ohio State. Notre Dame potentially, but I think that 6, 7, 8 is where teams are going to be flip-flopping around. And then I do also agree that Indiana will get in. And then that question of Alabama, if things shake this way, I think that Alabama does have a really good opportunity to get in the playoff. But so much that's going to happen today, right? There's only really 4 games that ultimately have strong implications on what's going to happen today. But I think it's going to be awesome. And my favorite part about it is look down that roster over here, I guess. I can't do the pointer here, but -1, -3, -2.5, or 3.5 for Oregon. This is like an NFL looking schedule here. There's no blowouts in these major games. And this is what is so awesome about every conference going away from the division format. Think about the years where Ohio State would play the winner of the Big Ten West. And you're like, okay, you're going to Indianapolis to beat Nebraska by 100, or to beat Wisconsin by 59, or any of those things. With that being gone, and every one of these matchups being number 1 versus number 2, it creates some awesome theater and stuff that we are so excited for today. So I know you don't want to listen to me any longer. It is football time. We are past the noon kickoff time here. So really appreciate you jumping in with me this morning to preview what is to come in Conference Championship Saturday and what it means for the Ohio State Buckeyes. We'll be back to our normally scheduled content next week. Obviously, this week's a little bit different with Ohio State not playing. There obviously will not be a game next week, but we'll have a really good idea of what's going on. We have an exciting show on Tuesday night. We're going to live watch the college football playoff reveal with you all. So tune in for that. Have it on ESPN on your main screen, and then pull us up on YouTube, and we'll talk about what it all means for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So look out for that on Tuesday, and then Thursday we'll preview kind of the path that the Buckeyes will have to take. But you can get all of that and much more content on our YouTube channel. If you're watching on Twitter, thank you. If you're watching on Facebook, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, really appreciate that as well. We have so much cool stuff on that YouTube page. So hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button if you like what we're doing, and share it with your friend and drop a comment in there. I always love hearing what everybody has to say. Oh, and appreciate it as well. I got my big winter coat on, so I know that there was some concern last week that I wasn't dressed warm enough, and I did pay for it. It's pretty sick at the start of this week, but I got my winter coat on today as it is still really, really chilly here in Columbus. But hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and then also head over to our website, si.com/college/Ohio State. As our group of guys, our team has you covered as the college football playoff gets set this week, and the drama of the first 12-team playoff ensues. Appreciate you jumping in with me. I'm Anthony Moeglin, and we'll see you again on another episode of the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast on Ohio State Buckeyes on SI.